Hi guys, welcome to another episode, and I'm really glad I'm doing this on a Saturday morning here in the UK, which is nice and sunny for a change, and somebody pretty special here joining me all the way from India who does this like work on every Saturday. In fact, he just told me so lots of exciting things to learn. I would love to introduce this person, but I will not do it. I will let him tell us all about himself a little bit, his brand, and guys, this is going to be an amazing conversation. So, welcome to Tushar.
Thank you, Shwetank. Glad to be here and really excited to sort of be doing this. I think quick introduction. I am running this brand called Perfora, which is a D2C oral care brand here in India. We've been at it since August of 2021, which is when we officially launched. And there was probably about another 10, 12 months of lead up leading into it. Uh, I'm an undergrad, did my undergrad in business from SRCC at Delhi University. I have spent time across startups within the Indian ecosystem. So I worked with startups like Oyo Rooms, Cultfit, Revigo, and Akiva Superfoods. I have a great co-founder, Jatan, with me, who comes with like very solid and diverse experience within the CPG space. So yes, we're having a good time trying to disrupt a really old and boring category. But yeah, I think that's sort of a quick summary about it, about the brand and me.
Perfect. Thank you, Tushar. There are a lot of things that you said that I'm going to go and break into everyone, some of those points to go deeper into. So thank you for that. One of the question I always had was how much time does a new D2C brand, which is going to launch in the market, the build up, as you said, was about 8 to 10 months, right? So that was majorly the time when that would have been that you realize that there is a need in the market, or how the whole idea of Perfora came about into being, and how much and what are the efforts that you had to take to bring it to the market, please.
Sure. So how Perfora came into being is, of course, there's like a more backstory because I and Jatan go way back in 2017. We both met at a entrepreneurship program called the Jagati Yatra, which is a 15-day train journey across India. So the train moves
Wow.
around at night and it gets stationed in the day, and we literally visit 15 different locations during that time period from end of December to early Jan, right? So this covers bigger places like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, of course. It also has really small tier two places, like a Hubli or like a Madurai. And it also really has tier three, tier four India, places like Behrampur in Odisha or Telonia in Rajasthan or Devariya in Uttar Pradesh. So
Super
that's
interesting. I didn't know about this. Okay, nice. Yeah.
it's a great program. My takeaway when I sort of did that, and now what I walked away with is that it's an amazing place. India's an amazing place with so many opportunities. So I don't think if if I don't lose like the will and the sort of courage to do something, if I have that, I'll always have something to do. I think that was my biggest takeaway from that journey. But yeah, so Jatan and I, we go long back. That was 2017. We stayed in touch. We both in the startup ecosystem. We also worked together at Akiva Superfoods for about a year. Now
Mhm.
Akiva was in the CPG space, food.
Mhm.
They were trying to modernize Ayurvedic products. So, they had like health juices in a short format, but these are like amla shots or turmeric shots. So, I dabbled a bit in offline and Horeca sales side of things. Jatan had been there for 3 years. So, we built a strong liking for the consumer economy, the consumer products economy at the time, to the level that a lot of our weekend scenes, like for example, there's like common spot here in Gurgaon, and we would catch up there, and of course, it's got a very nice modern trade store. So if you would be grabbing lunch. Or we'd be grabbing dinner. So then post lunch or pre that evening thing, we would spend like an hour at the store
Mhm.
navigating the coffee aisles, the personal care aisles. Beverages is, of course, always so exciting, right?
Right.
So that was how we were spending our time, and we were just very fascinated. And 2017, 2018 was also a great time. We had all these brands in India. Mama Earth come into life. There was Epigamia, there was Raw Pressery, brilliant colors, brilliant fonts, interesting stories. So we're just trying to like absorb all of that and internally getting really excited. So cut to 2020, 6 months post the pandemic. And this is also like both of us, individually have had 5 6 years working at startups. Of course, we really had the itch to want to build something. And at the time, we were both discussing about individual ideas. He was exploring something else, I was exploring something else, but we would always, connect once every month or once in 2 months to just catch up what is happening in life, and what sort of news coming. So within one of those conversations, it was like we both are looking out. Why not look together? And that is where and we went to it in a, I mean, it came to us also and we went to it. So we took a very structured approach of wanting to research and find gaps in the market where we could add value and say disrupt things or build something interesting. And within that research, oral care really popped out to us. There was very poor quality products in the Indian market, lack of awareness and excitement about the category, and then to top it all, the customer in across all other categories had really evolved. He had 50 plus options for his skin products. He had 30 plus options for his hair products. He was today consuming an energy bar or a protein bar or a completely
Yeah.
sugar free juice. So, the consumer was, she had really evolved in the consumption, but yet there was this one category where nothing was happening, to which it felt to us that probably the consumers almost like crying for something better here, right?
Right. Right.
And we ran through that and we spoke to about 500 people across calls and Google Forms, and circulated things. And the basic hypothesis that we had, that there is a need for a new age, cleaner, more innovative oral care brand, which say a modern consumer can sort of relate to and can understand better, would sort of exist. So that's how oral care happened. Now when it comes to the lead up to it, so again, 2020, it was not that we deep dived full on, right? We were just again validating things, putting in some research, and we did that. There was like a 6 month period we were doing this part time.
Hmm.
Tatan had his job. I was helping my father out with the my father runs a business in the food space. So, but we were spending about 3 4 hours every day, speaking to vendors, speaking to manufacturers, speaking to customers. And I think it was only in about June when we sort of had figured out what our first two products are going to be. We had built that conviction, see, because it is, you have to be convinced, right? You're gonna venture into something where, uh, of course, you'll be making much less money, but also at the same time, you have to be like really convinced. So I think it took us 6 months. I mean, I think we're convinced really early on, but uh, when you start getting more data, so you get more uh, confidence in your thought or what you were thinking about. And yeah, June we deep dived, and then it took us another 3 months to sort of have everything rolling. So that's what the lead up to the launch was like.
Excellent, excellent. So really nice. A lot of people I've spoken to in the past as well, and I think one thing is very common here, Tushar, is they were able to identify a problem, right? And the problem can be in multiple shapes and form, right? Sometimes it's even hard to put a problem down on paper together. But the way you describe it, that spending time in where people shop, different consumer products, etc. And now that you say, I can think of it in that way, that what, even today when I actually go to buy a toothpaste even for my daughter, right, and there are just two options, kind of a thing, right? So can there be more, or whereas soap are like 10 and shampoos will be 20 and things like that. Pretty interesting, yeah. And it takes quite a lot to identify that. And of course your conviction, you start with it and you continue to build, etc. So that was really nicely done. So you start something, and then you have come a long way since then, right? I've seen your website. It's on Shopify. I really like it. It's not overwhelming, but it does the right message. It tries to tell you why you are cool, in terms of what's your differentiation factor as well. It makes people want to try it once, and I think that's the way the brand should go and do. Not be very pushy, but go and tell them that, hey, you know what, try me once, and if you like it, then come back. Right? That's the right approach in e-commerce. You've had an amazing run at the Shark Tank as well. right? So that's a big label in India, but that would have been amazing to get that learning, get that experience as well. I'd like to ask you something that I personally believe in, but I don't share it with too many people. I'd like to ask your take, Tushar, because of the story. Um, I think founders need to be a little bit delusional. Do you agree?
I think yes. And I've sort of felt that really early on, where I have worked at startups and maybe in whatever brief interaction with founders, like over a dinner, and I would walk out thinking this guy is bad. He's crazy. Like, what is he
Yeah,
thinking? But absolutely, I think founders have to be delusional because, to your point, right? Uh, you have to have a different lens to really challenge the status quo and to sort of think beyond the status quo or question it. You have to be a little crazy because you are trying to imagine something which which most people believe is not sort of possible. So I think to imagine something which a large segment of people would just outright label impossible, you have to like sort of be delusional and say that no, this will happen, and for somebody to say no, no, you're crazy, like you're mad, it's sort of not possible. Because but in your head you're like, it is such a clear gap. So I mean, I think always, and whatever, like I really love reading memoirs, I love listening to podcasts. I think most great uh breakthroughs or interesting things that have happened at the time when they were happening, people could not have imagined that sort of is possible. So yeah, you bring that up, and I think it's absolutely true. And I think beyond a point of time, founders start from being delusional, and then they make a little progress, and then they become very inspiring. Because then for the people around them,
yeah.
something, because it was so crazy, it was so outlandish, but this person led and did the step one, did the step two. So now that delusionality ends up turning into very inspiring for the core members around, or people along on the journey. And which is where like a lot of magic also happens. It's, I think, one of the most important qualities in a founder is that they need to have the ability to
Yeah.
uh, inspire their teams, inspire their vendors, inspire their investors, sell a story, make them believe the story. So
Okay, I'm glad at least two people agree with this. But yeah, and I think I completely agree with you because you look at there's the pole star, and you don't know how to reach there. What is it going to take? All you have to do is to find some good people who agree to the cause, sign up for the mission, and then guys, let's go execute, right? So that's very important. Now let's go and talk a little bit about the whole e-commerce market, right? There are a few pointers that I have been seeing in the industry, and I'd like your take on that. So, firstly, there's this constant debate, and I hear very different answers from different people about acquisition or retention. Right? What's your take on that, Tushar?
yeah, very interesting. I don't think. Um, um, I mean, exactly. Like for example, I remember we're still in the early stages, but I remember reading somewhere on LinkedIn about how a Coca-Cola example. It's like it's like probably it's a very poor retention game, but it's such like a acquisition game, reach game, distribution game. You
Yeah.
have to, if you're available across the world like that with so many touch points, nobody cares about retention because you're just sort of out there and making things happen.
Hmm.
But sort of coming back to D2C, uh, I think first 5 years of a brand, retention is very important. First 5 years, you're trying to uh, really get people into your brand ecosystem, and they have to come and want to use your product again and again and again.
Hmm.
This has to be a good balance. And now, again, depending upon what's the objective or what's the pace that one wants to get at, and of course, availability of capital, whether you're bootstrapped or whether you're funded, also defines a lot of that. I think bootstrapped, maybe you don't have the resources or you might want to take it slower. Of course, there are enough examples of bootstrap brands who've just sort of skyrocketed things. That also, of course, happens. But for that to happen, acquisition has to be your mainstay for the uh, first initial time of course, anything launching. And I think the cycle keeps repeating every time you sort of do a new product. Very interesting early on. You have to keep churning out products as a D2C brand. It's very
Yeah.
important for the right products to keep adding on. You're selling digitally, you're getting people to your store, you have to give them a lot of options, you have to build that relevancy, you have to
Yeah.
build that ecosystem. Each time you launch a product, you have to have like a proper acquisition strategy. And once those 3 4 months of acquisition sort of investment is sort of put in, and you know, or you have an hypothesis of what the repeat should look like, then it's very important to also invest and actually set up the infrastructure for repeat. I think repeat, maybe setting up the infra the first time is probably, of course, hard, but once the infra is in place, it is so beautiful and efficient to
Yeah.
just keep utilizing it. And the base and the compounding only starts getting higher, right? The number of emails you have, the number of people on your WhatsApp, the number of people on your SMS, the kind of community that you can reach out to via your social media handles, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Uh, so like for example, today anything that we launch new, we straight up have a ready access of about 1 lakh plus people that anyways hear from us. So
Wow.
there's like sort of money to be spent for it. For the first 10 15 days, we don't spend any money.
Hmm.
We sort of reach out to these people, get like a good conversion rate. It's almost like a first pilot with 500,000 units getting done via this channel, and us also very closely making those calls in 15, 30, 45 days, and then understanding whether this product makes sense or does not make sense. Of course, every product market fit is important. You have to have those 1,000, 1,500 units going. You have to have that feedback. You have to have that product rating being 4.2 plus. And also like people really feeling that, okay, it is filling a void. It's not just sort of
Hmm.
non-purposeful. It is definitely sort of solving something.
Right.
But yes, I think it's a beautiful balance of acquisition and retention for a D2C brand, especially in today's time. I think D2C is also now hard because it is just so easy to start a brand. I think it's never been easier to start a brand. You get a website going, you get yourself a Meta Google page, and you start running an A/B test ad, even if you don't have the product.
Yeah.
You could do pre-orders just with the landing page. You could figure out interest. So I think the easiest thing today is to start a brand, but the flip is that the hardest thing today is to sort of sustain it and grow it. Massive hyper competition, and if that is the plan to grow it, uh, your acquisition will have to lead, but then retention has to stand behind acquisition like a solid pillar, because then because acquisition needs that sort of base or that strength to keep going, keep going, keep getting aggressive. If
Yeah.
retention is not there solidly, then like acquisition just loses all its benefits, right? Then it's like a leaky bucket. It'll never fill. You're filling it with water, but it's emptying out, emptying out, emptying out. You need the water to stay inside.
Very nice.
And
Yeah, very very beautiful, Tushar. I always in my head, I always kind of consider that if you're an early stage, just launching, then you do acquisition. In a few months, you start acquisition, retention, maybe, yeah, 80/20 kind of a split. If you are 3 4 years, then you do my 50/50 or something like that, right? But that was in a different lens. But the way you're trying to describe it, it's in a completely different format, because what it leads to is you have a really nice base, which you've been able to build because of all the work, or in the community building, and now you launch a product, you do a pilot kind of a thing, learn from it, and then go mass market. Provides a lot of value for the brand. So yeah, that's kind of really makes sense. Coming to another trend that I'm seeing in the market now, and again talking to a lot of D2C guys and e-commerce guys, is a lot of them launched in about uh, the 2000s, let's say, right? And they got a major increase and rising of orders because of COVID, and now it's all going downhill, right? We're seeing even in the US now, Walmart and other places are now trying to take those extra effort because they're seeing people coming back in stores. So this is where I think one, your market is getting split. A lot of people would want to go into an offline and online strategy. How do you see that being in the market dynamics in the couple of coming years?
so this also is a very category specific phenomenon, sure. Uh, Most D2C brands, just by the function, like I mean, if I talk about India and whatever little I know about Western markets, I think the markets have a lot of depth. And especially for a D2C brand, there's of course a lot of depth because there's just like such a small base that everybody's starting from, right? Now, if you're in a category which is, let's say, 15% penetrated into online,
Mm.
uh, then you have to just, then I think a brand just thinks about things very, very differently. I think,
Mm.
for example, just throwing out sort of some numbers, like for example, in India, I think beauty penetration, e-com online is about 8, 9, or 10 odd percent. So, what a larger narrative we see is that most beauty brands want to touch 100 crore ARR online. Like you can build 100 crore online revenue brand today in India purely online. You don't have to touch a store, right?
Okay.
Maybe for any some other category, maybe like for example electronics, right? The penetration would be much higher than 10%. So maybe you can
Yeah.
actually build a 500 or 1,000 crore revenue brand in India for
Mm.
electronics by not even touching a single offline store.
Yeah.
uh, I think the reason people, and of course, COVID did that and brought this acceleration. What I've also read post that is that the penetration in COVID, where it reached, actually, it has dropped in certain areas a little bit with the
Mm.
world opening up more. I think just buying and like consuming things is there's a lot of experiential angle to it. So uh, there's a different sensory need that the offline world solves, and
Mm.
which is why we're seeing offline sort of coming back. I remember at the time I used to work with Cult Fit, which is in the fitness space,
Yeah.
and the larger narrative as like Peloton blew up.
Yeah.
There's so much happening, and okay, gyms are sort of going to die. And now you look at it, like the number of memberships are more than what they were pre-COVID because
Yeah.
uh, gyms solve for community, offline touch and feel people, because inherently I think that's what people are, but sort of not digressing from it. Uh, Today, as I said, like it is so easy to start a brand and everybody's out there. Now,
Yeah.
online, there's only limited places where you can buy media from.
Mm.
Uh, there's Meta, there's Google, and the more people are there to buy, for us also, each cost per click, each cost per 100 impressions is just skyrocketing. And
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
earlier, I think when we were starting off, what we thought was in the early days the ROAS is bad. As we scale, things will get better. Now the writing is that as you scale, the CAC is only going to go up.
Yes. Yes.
CAC sort of acquisition maybe worked 2 years, 3 years back. Now it's has to be a blended approach. You have to solve for brand. You have to solve for top of the mind relevance for your customer. So today, what we believe, and I've heard this enough, that today, if you're a consumer product company, you have to be a content company first. Uh, the amount of time that everybody's spending on social media, be it YouTube, be it Instagram, be it Twitter, you have to try and create content that you automatically, organically enter their feed. And for that, the
Okay.
content has to be top notch. You have to understand the trends, what's working. You have to find a correlation between the trends that are working and the category you are in, and how do you find a tie and a knot between them so that there's some correlation and you can sort of build something so that you are there. And a lot of this, of course, happens organically. We've also been doing it for 2 years now. A lot of things don't work. One or two things work. You sort of really enjoy it,
Yes.
and magic happens there. But for us, for example, we are in a category which probably is only 5-6% online. So
Mm.
we've had to go offline. We wanted to go offline really early on. Oral care, a toothpaste or a toothbrush or a mouthwash is something which makes a lot of sense at a pharmacy store. It makes a lot
Mm.
of sense at like a modern trade store, or a store where pick up your groceries or sort of certain other buys. So I think we like today are available in about 250 plus stores, and I think again it's a very so offline is a more execution heavy business. Yet
Mm.
for us, everything just like our presence in offline just builds so much more trust for the brand.
Yeah.
So,
That's
and
right.
I know that certain cities, if you activate offline, I've spoken to enough founders that their online conversion rates have gone up because they're available in 500 stores in that city. So being omni-channel just ends up together helping each
Okay.
other channel. See, because you are trying to get to your customer at 10 different touch points. You don't
Exactly.
know who he
Yeah.
want you.
Yeah.
You are trying
It's,
to convince him. He's
it's like an attribution coming from offline and you don't even know. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, right? But and exactly. So you have the entire attribution piece online. Now
Yeah.
imagine if the offline had to be built into that. So I
Yeah.
think it just sort of expands the horizon, expands the sort of universe of it, brings in 100 more variables, which of course uh, takes a lot more time in offline. If it
Of
takes
course.
you maybe X in online, you bring online to the fore, then it's 10x. So that's the
Yeah.
time. But I think the important part about building a brand is brands are not built in 5, 10 years. You're building a brand which has to last decades, and if one's lucky, even centuries, right? I think that's where sort of uh, that should be the goal. I mean, that's the idea of
That
building something when you're putting in so much heart and thought. You want that thing to like stick around forever and forever, and which is what brands do.
Yeah, see, so everybody who's watching, see, I told you it's going to be worth your time because that's an absolutely gold nugget from Tushar is if you are an e-commerce or a D2C company, you need to be a content company first in today's, atmosphere. So guys, I think that's really very nicely said. And we all are trying to build a brand for a company, person, or however it is. And people can come and look at you from any direction, any place today, right? You have to put in your best front and then try and tell them why, what need are you solving, why are you better than the others, and how can you help? And they would give you a try, and that's all you need. Then the product takes over and everything else goes there. So that was amazing. uh, because you touched CAC, and this is one of the things that we're trying to tell a lot of our customers is, first of all, increasing spend on ads is not directly relational to increase in sales or revenue. It doesn't
No,
happen.
at all. It's
It doesn't.
suicidal.
It's thank you. Okay, good. I didn't say that. Okay, guys. So yeah, that's true. And Tushar, this is where my experience comes in. Like working with digital products for about 15 plus years now, and we used to create those very nice digital applications or websites, etc., for very large brands, and hire the best marketing agencies out of New York in Manhattan and spending about $1 million on customer acquisition. 6 months, nobody is using it, right? At
Hmm.
the end. And that's where you need to realize that there needs to be something more, which is offering customers which solves their problem, which is engagement, retention. But in the D2C world, if coming back comes to conversion rate, what I mean to say by that is average conversion rate are about 3%. But most of the Indian D2C founders that I've spoken to, they are still around 1.5 to 2.7%. Right? I've never come across anybody saying more than that. And the other thing is your ad sophistication in Meta, LinkedIn, Twitter has gone up exponentially high. Right? But this 3% conversion rate hasn't changed in a decade. There have been A/B testing tools. There have been some kind of again speed enhancer tools, etc., etc. But using the customer data and trying to engage them to increase that in real time is still extremely hard. Right? What are your conversion rate challenges, Tushar, and what's your strategy? How do you look about in having some now, or how would you like to look at that in the next 1 year or so?
Conversion, yes, I think everybody's sort of trying. That's the most crucial element, and you work around with everything. Uh, of course, it's a function of what sessions you're getting, what's the CPM you're getting for those sessions, what's the CPC one's getting at, and conversion almost always has to, of course, make sense. Of course, it keeps varying depending on what your AOV is. If your AOV is really, really high up, maybe the conversion is slightly lesser. Your AOV is much lower, the conversion rates are relatively higher. But I think in this, of course, going to throw like a bit of jargons. I think as a brand, you have to know what your right to win is, and for a customer, you have to give him his right to believe in you. And I think which is where a lot of conviction building needs to happen. And if you are actually trying to solve a problem, a big challenge is how are you communicating that problem and the solution to your customer. That, of course, the magic happens with the creative, with the copy that you're putting out, which if sort of is working, you will see the right click through rates happening. So if the click through is happening, so you're solving with these two things all the time. You're solving for click through and you're solving for conversion. And you also want your creative to talk to your product also, because otherwise you'll get a great CTR, but your conversion will be low, and
Okay.
eventually CAC will be skewed. So you want
Fair.
like a good CTR, and then so you don't want to make an outlandish claim in the creative, right? Because you'll get the click, but then you'll have like almost 1%, 0%, somewhere in
Mm.
that conversion. So then sort of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Uh, so what you're communicating in the creative, what the call to action is, or what is the larger problem or the angle you're trying to test, you have to make sure that, of course, now with the sophistication of technology, the entire journey has to be very smooth. Okay, you clicked on it, the link should open very quickly, the website speed has to be on point. You have to ensure at the back end the auditing is done, the size of all images or whatever you've put has to be ideal, that this is not taking more than 1 or 2 seconds, right?
Mm.
Because that is also where drop-offs happen today. Everybody's so used to scrolling. There's just so much to do. If you literally have got like somebody's attention, then things have to happen very, very quickly. So then,
Yeah.
the site has to load very quickly. Your page has to come up. Now, on your page, on that amazing real estate that you get with your 5, 6 listing images and a bit about the product, that flow has to be there. You have to think very logically, very rationally as what is the customer trying to solve for. If you're selling something which is very, very functional, then those first two images have to talk about the function and they have to convince them this is the solution.
Yeah.
And you do this, you are going to get this. If you're selling an aspiration, if you're selling a lifestyle, then he's clicked on your link, but on the first two, three images, you have to sell a
Mm.
lifestyle. Maybe it's a great model, maybe it's a great location somewhere in Paris or Turkey,
Yeah.
maybe it's a great setting at a beach or in the hills. You sort of figure it out, but you have to see that what is that direction sort of inching in. And you
Mm.
could have like a super boring medicinal product, or you could have like a really cool fashion or travel product. But these two, that talking sort of has to be there, and one has to think about conversion overall, not just like the end the conversion that
Mm.
happens on the checkout page. Now, even here, like once even that real estate is solved for, okay, the customer sort of solved, you have to figure out that why will that customer add to cart or buy it now, right? And to sort of solve for that, uh, even like a lot of worry happens there, like literally, I mean, within the funnel you will see sort of person going from landing page to spending time doing the session, adding to cart, then going to the final checkout page, then the payment happens, and there is drop page or leakage that happens each of those.
Everything. Big point. Yeah.
So now with amazing tech available, you have to ensure that to the best of your ability, you've optimized everything. The person's adding to cart, it has to quickly get, take to his cart. If it's doing buy it now, it has to go very smoothly to the checkout page. Now there are tools available where things will auto pick up your email and your address. Have that.
Mm.
I have dropped off. I have stopped myself from buying something when I had to put in the address, because you
Yeah.
are giving the customer time to think about the decision he just took. You're giving him those 10 seconds that, okay, I'm adding my address, but I'm thinking, do I really need
Right
this?
now.
Do I really
Yeah.
need this? Do I really need this?
Yeah.
So, sort of solve that. Then once that happens, you process the checkout. It has to be a great page with all my options available, right?
Mm.
I want a credit card or a debit card or a UPI. All of that has to flow like super, super smooth. So yeah, I think conversion, of course, is a function of all of these. We faced all of these challenges, and hence I think I've spoken about the solutions that we've
Nice.
of course
Yeah.
implemented. We enjoy very good conversion rates on our D2C website. D2C is our mainstay. I think we've built something that we are, of course, there's things to get really, really better, but we're proud of what it is today, and how customers interact with it, how they purchase. We have an entire story there. There's a note from the founders. There are videos talking about what things are. Even on the landing page, on the detail page view, you'll find A plus niche if you want to know more. You will find videos. You will find our brand promises. You will find our testimonials. All of this is what we want to give the customer to build that trust, and be convinced that this is a great purchase that he's of course sort of making. We have that even validation from the Vogues and the Forbes and all of those of the worlds
Yeah.
who've written good things about us, and the customer needs to know that there is some solid institutional appreciation also for this product that I'm buying. So I think it's been a function of all of those things for me to today sort of say, okay, today what are the struggles? One's never happy, right? I mean, even if you're at X, you're like, okay, I want to
Yeah.
improve this. I want
Yeah.
to improve this. Why is this person not converting? And maybe like we enjoy a particular conversion rate across as a brand, right? There are probably certain products which we know have a lot of potential. Maybe the conversions are not that good. So we are trying to constantly figure out uh, finding what will work for the customer or what will convince the customer. it's also, I mean, it's an art and a science, right? Of course, there's a process to it. At times you find that maybe in a month or two, at times it could take 6 8 months.
Sure.
uh, and I mean, at times it doesn't work, so you have to drop off and drop like a product, which is of course also the freedom or the flexibility that building a D2C brand allows you to. It's not that difficult to like stop something which is sort of not working. But yeah, that's been the conversion journey so far.
Yeah, and again, it's not just one thing, it's just the culmination of everything that you've been doing that shows those tiny 0.01% increase somewhere. And then so I think you very rightly said that these are all the learnings and the playbooks that you guys have built over the past 2 years, and then this category, this SKU might be doing well and this not, so let's try. And and the other words, when I was hearing you talk about conversion rate, I could see like your website again very rightly with all those sections, right? It has the testimonials, it has the reviews, it has the note, it has the videos, it has the validation from other guys and feedback. All this goes and plays in the visitor's mind to see that, okay, yeah, this I would like to give it a try, right? And then kind of helps in going beyond.
Yeah.
Perfect. So last two questions, Tushar. One is a little cheeky one, is you have to tell us something here on the show for everybody listening, is something you've never told anybody.
Wow, that's a tricky one. That's a tough sort of place to be in. Something that I have not told anybody about. Perfora.
No,
Uh,
about you as well. It doesn't matter the brand, but it can be anything. Like one of the founders I spoke to, he said that when he's very tensed, he plays guitar, and he's still very bad at it, so he's not told others about it. You
oh,
know, so things like that. Just anything which you have not told anybody and should be, for others to hear.
uh, I think I've never, of course, sort of. I mean, I've probably told people, but like one constant thing that uh, I don't like social media. Like if I would have had it my way, like I don't like spending time on Instagram, because then I sort of start feeling that I am not in control of my time, because I can't sort of be like, and it happens so many times to me in the night. Like I earlier on I used to find reels so stupid, but now I sort of really at times, like the simplest way is to sort of not have the Instagram app. Of course, because I'm building a D2C brand, that's like our world. That's where we get a lot of inspiration and learnings and content from. And it's important for that consumption to happen. Uh, but I really hate Instagram reels. I
Yeah.
sort of dislike them, and I think that loop that I get trapped into, I just hate that feeling. Every that happens and it ends up sucking an hour. I just curse myself the next morning.
Hey, that's music to my ears, Tushar. I was having dinner with some people yesterday, and the one person asked me, saying, "What's your Instagram?" I said, "I'm not on Instagram." And the person, like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." But the necessary evil that it has become in the industry today, right? To know what's happening, to the way things are. And especially, there's one fun fact which I don't know if it is happening in India, but it's very popular in the US and UK. Is if a brand offers discount codes on abandoned carts. So it's like, you go to one website and then you leave something. They go and tell you that this particular brand will send you an email with a code in 20 minutes,
Wow.
or they will send it to you after 1 day. So they take this information, update it, and put that in their profile so that people can watch and then hack the. So it is also going to that direction, which is kind of insane, but that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so last thing, Tushar, will was that you've been through the hard journey, and again, being a founder myself, I can in no state know that it's an easy one. It takes a lot of blood and sweat. But what I aim to do with this podcast also is to inspire people that, hey guys, if you want to do it, go for it, and you'll figure it out. And I learn a lot talking to people like you, but also the idea is community does as well. So On an average, I read a report that about 50 D2C brands get launched in India every single day. Okay. Even
Wow.
taking this stat with a pinch of salt, we know there are a lot of brands, and for a really bad reason, more than 90% of them will not make it, right? Because they'll not be able to convert enough visitors and all that stuff, right? So,
That's the
because
rule
of
of life. So
yeah, yeah, exactly, right? So, but because you've been able to do something which is quite exceptional, been there, done that,
very early days, very early days. Huh.
very early, which is the way to look at it, Tushar, because it's, like you said, we're building it for a long term, right? So again, there are going to be so many variables that you can control, you can't, but at least that head start. If I had to ask you, can you tell us five top things on your head what a new D2C brand which is launching should take care of? Then that'll be super.
One, there has to be a clear gap that has to be identified. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that that gap has to be like, it doesn't have to be, oh, like, okay, nobody's doing something in this category and okay, it has to be like a big gap. Something really small. It could be like an ingredient, it could be an existing problem. And right now, there's so many problems around, right? Problems around, say, related to the environment, related to comfort, related to even like ethicality of products or sourcing or production. But you have to have that one clear thing that has to like sort of become your reason to exist.
Mhm.
I think when you have a very strong core reason to exist, it's just easier to communicate to people and convince them, and you know, to like get your story out. You know, sort of exist really cool, smartly. Second, I would say that it's also very important to sort of know that it's going to be a journey where on day zero you are the maker, and you have to be the maker for a very long time till the time enough scale or enough validation or enough proof doesn't come for you to become a checker. I think a lot of people, and I mean there's no right or wrong, maybe a lot of people who've spent or worked professionally for 15, 20 years start off at a level where you know they'll have teams in place and they'll start off checking on day zero. I
Mhm.
think D2C may being hands off does not work. You have to be hands on.
Mhm.
Whatever literally you're doing, you have to be hands on. You have to live and breathe everything, if not more, at least for the first 3, 4 years, right? You know, you
True.
cannot cut yourself that slack. You have to live and breathe it.
Mhm.
Building a consumer brand, putting your story out, delivering all of that is sort of not easy. So I think uh, being solidly hands on is super critical.
Mhm.
Third, I think identifying and giving a strong personality and tone to your brand. I think, of course, that is for one to also decide whether, you know, you could be a brand or you could be a trading brand. Both exist, right? So you
Correct.
also have to, I
Mhm.
mean, somebody just comes today and marketplace is going to be the mainstay 80, 90%, and they're going to play on price. They're also still building a brand. The brand
Yeah.
will get built because,
Mhm.
which is what I say, like earlier today, like everything is a brand, right? Trust and quality is already solved for. Like in most, like at least the base of it.
Yeah.
Uh, Today, what brands solve for is that what is the emotional need you're solving? The
Yeah.
person's purchasing it, he's using it every day. So, okay, so I think you have to really know your brand very macroly to the core. And then
Mhm.
if brand's going to be a mainstay, then you have to invest effort in figuring out what the identity core of the brand's going to be, because uh, the brand will communicate to people. The brand is going to make people make feel things, and the people will
Yeah.
look at the brand, will look at the packaging, will look at the communication on social media or the handle, and they will feel something, or they will have
Right.
a take.
Right.
Is that takeaway the same that you want to communicate? Of course, it's hard to get on. Maybe you start with something. Maybe your customer tells you they want that.
Mhm.
You're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
makes sense to morph into that direction. But having that is sort of important, and I think investing on it really early on is super important. Fourth, I think customer experience is the king. Like you have to, NPS has to be the north metric. Uh, I know we all keep chasing revenue, but
Mhm.
NPS, product market fit, is the core. You do that right, maybe the start will be slow, but if you're absolutely hitting it out of the park on these two metrics, you're building something amazingly well. So I think that sort of focus has to be there. And yeah, I think five, I mean, I hope most people sort of get to that, but there is a lot of magic. Like brands, anything great is never built alone. It's a group set of people. You need a brilliant set of team. You need to have people who are smarter than you. It is hard, of course. It's not easy. Hiring them is not easy. Everybody sort of, convincing them is not easy. But it's amazing when you have a bunch of people, you're all building things together, you're all energetic, you're all passionate. You learn so many things for them, yet you're able to sort of inspire them. Uh, I think team, yeah, team does the magic. Because I think even as a founder, there are 10 things, and at max, for anybody to go deep into is two or three at best. There are other seven
Mm,
things. What are you guys sort of going to do about it, right? So
mm,
I mean, we're also sort of trying, and I know all great founders do this really well. But uh, it is also difficult. You can't invest in the right team because it's always like a chicken and egg problem.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
but one should know that the team's going to play a very, very, very important role if you want to build something long term and like long lasting.
Super, Tushar. I think those 5 points are really very helpful. When you were saying that, I was thinking that from my perspective, right? My startup, my company, and whatever you said, I think kind of holds true for non D2C, non e-commerce as well, right? Fundamentally, at the core, when you're building something, these are the foundational pillars that I think everybody should invest their energy and time into and be delusional and then go for it. And you always learn in the process. And guys like me, was amazing to get to talk to Tushar in the process. And I'm so happy that I got introduced to him, and then we ended up chatting. This has been an amazing conversation. And next time, I already know the topic I want to pick his brain on, which is PMF. He said it twice, and PMF, in my opinion, is one of the hardest thing to explain. But I would like to do this later with him, is to get his take on what PMF is, because again, PMF for an e-commerce brand is something very different too from a software side of things. But again, thank you so much, Tushar. This was really nice. You sharing all the insights, which should inspire a lot of people, jumping the gun and figuring things out, and always learning on the way. Guys, from my perspective, Tushar is a really nice guy, very approachable, and I'm sure he'll be open to take your questions as well. So feel free to do that. Do check out their product; it's really cool. Their website is very nice. So one brands who are building their website from scratch, take some inspiration. It has the right foundations, and I really just want to say thank you, Tushar, for all your time, and we should definitely repeat this pretty soon.
No, thank you, Shwetang. Thank you for having me. I had a great time. This was fun. A fun way to spend a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.